In 1453, Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks, and trade with Asia was restricted by them. This led to European countries seeking a new route to Asia. The most defining moment of the era was the encounter between Europeans and the Taino Indians in the 15th century. One European explorer named Christopher Columbus accidentally found the American continent. This led to a near era of contact between Europeans and previously undisturbed populations of Native Americans. This era of European contact saw the fall of many Native American tribes and societies as Spanish explorers came for the rumor of unimaginable fortune. England settlers were driven to settle due to the split in religion in Europe, and French explorers sought to find a route around and through the continent of Asia, as well as the growing industry of American fur trade. These cultural encounters led to the decline of native Indian culture and eventual rise of American sovereignty and the United States of America. The Americas were first inhabited by Native Americans. They had the continent all to themselves, therefore the Europeans were not the first to arrive to America. The Europeans did not discover America, they conquered it with violence and oppression of the natives. Before the Europeans arrived, Native Americans lived in relative undisturbed peace. It is believed Native Americans first arrived in the Americas by crossing the Bering Land Bridge formed 25,000 to 14,000 years ago, connecting Siberia to Alaska. Culture within the Native American society was extremely diverse, with different ways of living depending on geographical locations. They lived comfortably with nature, they honored shamans and priests that were believed to have ways with supernatural and spirits. It is estimated that the population of North America was 50 to 100 million. Some were farmers while others were hunter-gatherers. They lived from the Alaskan tundra, forests, and grasslands, and developed unique ways of life. One group of Native Americans were the Anasazi, or Ancient Ones, of the Southwest. This group of natives lived in present-day New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado about 700 years before Columbus interacted with natives. This community cultivated crops containing corn, squash, beans, and chilies, and they are most known for their cliff pueblos, which were their form of housing that utilized cliffs for protection from weather and competing tribes. Another group of natives were the Cahokia people of the Mississippi Valley. They were also known as the Mound Builders, and they flourished by building strong wooden walls and thatch-covered houses that housed 20 to 40,000 people. Cahokia was one of the largest settlements in the United States before the Europeans, and they built mounds for religious and burial activities, and farmed and cultivated maize and beans. Native Americans also formed strong societies and alliances in the North. 5 Native American tribes formed an alliance against other tribes. These were the Mohawks, Oneidas, Onondagas, Cayugas, and Senecas. These nations were known as the Iroquois Confederacy. Much like the North American Indians, the Mesoamerican civilizations was also a vast civilization that was extremely advanced in their belief systems and well developed in their economy. The Maya Indians were a group of early people who lived in the regions of Central America to Yucatan, and in Mexico similarly, the Aztecs were another major Indian group that was centralized around the southern portion of current Mexico. Before European encroachment, the Indians were a flourishing civilization. They were polytheistic, and nature and human sacrifice was an integral part. The Aztec built the city of Tenochtitlan, where an extensive trade network emerged. The Europeans' presence in Native America did not begin until the mid-15th century. However, the impact of Native Americans, their lifestyle, their culture, language, population, would be changed and disturbed in major ways after Europeans' arrival. In Europe, the Ottoman Turks took over the city of Constantinople, a major center of trade with Asia, and restricted trade. This led to many European countries looking for new routes to trade with Asia. One explorer, Christopher Columbus, set off into the Atlantic, believing that he could find a route to Asia by the principle that the Earth was spherical. He set sail, and not knowing there was a continent between Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, mistakenly thought he landed in India, where he landed on a small Caribbean island, where he met welcoming Tainos people and termed them Indians. Columbus noted that the Tainos would be good servants and exaggerated his finding of gold for sponsors, took prisoners of Tainos, and set a total of 4 voyages from Europe to America. When the Tainos rebelled, the Spanish and Columbus fought, and almost all the Tainos were killed. One of the first major impacts and consequences brought by the Europeans was the Columbian Exchange, the transatlantic exchange of plants, animals, and diseases that occurred between Europeans and Native Americans. Crops and food like corn, beans, potatoes, squash, and other plants enriched European diets, and wheat, oats, and many new fruits from Europe, Africa, and Asia was introduced. The introduction of chickens, cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses changed Native American transportation and diet, and the Columbian Exchange, however, also brought diseases such as smallpox that devastated the Native American population that had no immunity to the disease. With the help of smallpox, advanced military strategies, and tools such as guns, armor, swords, and horses, the Aztec and Inca empires fell swiftly to Cortez and his Spanish army, and the conquered land became known as New Spain. As the Spanish conquered more and more land in America, many Spaniards began to settle in the Americas and explored the areas as legends of wealth and gold sprang up. One early Spanish explorer was Ponce de Leon, who explored Florida, and Narvaez's expedition to explore Florida that ended up in disaster when they did not only not find fortune, they were also attacked by Native Americans. The survivors decided to travel back to Mexico City, While many stayed and lived among the Native Americans, 4 traveled through Texas and made it back. The Spanish were one of the most successful explorers and settlers in America, eventually exploring Mississippi, California, New Mexico, and settling in Florida. Meanwhile, in Europe, Martin Luther began the Protestant Reformation, hoping to reform the Catholic Church practices. This led to a split in religion and the birth of Protestantism in Europe. The Protestant Reformation split England's religious groups, Catholic Anglicans and Protestant Puritans. This led to England oppressing Puritans and causing many to settle in the Americas. English inventors created the Virginia Company, and settlers from England began to arrive in North America. One of the earliest colonies was Jamestown in 1607. The French were more interested in finding a route through or around America to Asia, and had little presence during this period. They first settled in 1603 around St. Lawrence River and founded the city of Quebec. Most French settlers in North America were fur trappers, as the demand for beaver pelts and fur increased in Europe. This caused rivalries and competition for beaver fur, as the French wanted more and more beavers, sparking conflict with Native Americans. During this period of increasing European encroachment, Native American resistance was weak, as threats from other close tribes were more dangerous to Native Americans than encroaching Europeans. The smallpox epidemic brought by the Europeans also weakened the Native Americans, making them less able to resist. Language differences and rivalries between Native Americans prevented alliances and effective communication between tribes and prevented natives from uniting to resist European encroachment. However, as European influence grew and Native Americans became more and more affected, resistance grew and conflict rose in the 17th century. The Native American was a peaceful group of culturally diverse individuals and sophisticated society. It was the fall of Constantinople that led to the discovery of them, along with their continent, the Americas. The European exploited and conquered the Americas. They mistreated and oppressed natives. The French sought to find a way to Asia through Americas. The English settled in the Northeast, and the Spanish conquered the explored large areas of South and North America. It would not be until later that the natives will begin to heavily resist the increasing European encroachment.